Chicago. I love Chicago. Good morning. Good morning. I'm in upstate New York and it's currently snowing. So there's that. Yeah, I know. It's rough. It's rough. Should be used to it, but I'm not. Okay, good morning. It is noon, so I want to get started and be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. Again, these webinars are the first Thursday of every month at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so mark your calendars. So today I want to talk about promoting work-life balance. This is huge. It's a trendy topic. It's an important topic, and let's see what we can do in order to promote it. My name is Mary Ellen. If I haven't spoken to you yet, I'm a licensed mental health counselor by trade, and I am the director of corporate training here at ENI. And so the last slide has my email address because I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about what work-life balance is, why we're talking about it. The definition of work-life balance is effectively managing time and energy to prioritize both work-related commitments and personal pursuits. It sounds lovely, but I don't know if I've ever met anyone who says that they couldn't improve upon their work-life balance. 42% of employees say they would leave their current job for one that offers better work-life balance. And 20% of employees worldwide feel that their work-life balance is satisfactory. So what that means is 80% of worldwide employees feel that their work-life balance is not satisfactory, which I think is very interesting. 80% of employees also say that they would be more loyal to their employers if they had flexible work options. So it's really tricky. We all know that COVID changed the world. Working from home, having more flexibility changed the world for the good and the bad. One of the bad ways it changed the world is because now we are connected all of the time. We are connected all of the time. And so that has created a lot of confusion and a lot of blurred lines that weren't there 30 years ago, let's say. So again, we can all think about work-life balance and think that it sounds nice on paper, but there are a lot of barriers. I already mentioned the fact that we are connected all of the time. And one of those barriers of being connected all of the time is not knowing what's expected of us. So is it expected of me to answer an email at 9 o'clock at night? Or is it okay that I leave that email until tomorrow morning? So often we are violating our own boundaries and responding to things and working when we don't want to because we think that we're supposed to. We think that it's expected of us. So one huge thing that we can all do today about work-life balance is talk to a supervisor, talk to colleagues about expectations with specifically with communication. And it's interesting, I think we can all agree that we are maybe a little bit addicted to cell phones, maybe just a smidge. I talk about work-life balance a lot, and whenever I talk about work-life balance, I always ask how many people have or regularly answer work emails while in bed. And it's always at least 90% of people that I'm talking to say yes. And what's even more fascinating than that is that when I say, okay, we need to all stop answering emails in bed, people are like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. So one of the barriers to work-life balance is actually us. It's actually us not setting those boundaries. Maybe it's because we don't have those clear expectations. Maybe it's because we don't want to be up all night thinking about the email that was sent to us, so we just want to get it over with. Maybe it's because we're just a smidge addicted to our cell phones. But that's a huge, huge barrier. Some other common barriers to work-life balance is a workload imbalance. If we're just simply overworked, a lot of us are experiencing staffing issues. So if there's not enough staff and then we're overworked, That's a huge, huge barrier. Lack of boundaries. I already mentioned this with the answering emails in bed. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to first decide, what boundaries do I want? What boundaries are reasonable in my job? What are my expectations in my job? If I'm able to not answer emails at 9 o'clock, I'm not going to do it. And then what are the boundaries that I want to implement, and how do I hold myself accountable to that? So, it's a lot more complicated than just saying, let's have boundaries with work. It's more of, let's figure out what's realistic, what do I want, and how do I do that? Because it's hard. It's hard. I personally have to, because I get my work email on my cell phone, I have to turn off the notifications, because I know if I hear a ping, I'm gonna want to answer it. But I know that that is bad for me, and that won't make me feel like I have really productive work-life balance. So again, setting these boundaries with work is a lot more complicated and nuanced than it sounds. Another common barrier to work-life balance is ineffective time management. We all can do better with time management. We all waste time during the workday when we should be working on something we're kind of avoiding. That's a huge thing. Working on our time management and what works the best for us in terms of completing tasks and how we use and manage our time is really important to look at. I've already talked about technology overload, and that kind of leads into unsupportive work culture. If we have a work culture where everyone is answering emails at 9 o'clock at night, it's going to be really uncomfortable if we're not answering emails at 9 o'clock at night. So we can't necessarily go and change our work culture, but we can be aware of it, and we can be aware of how it's affecting us. I'm actually going to take this a step further and talk about our culture in general. We are in a culture of a hustle culture of productivity, and we always have to be doing better, and we always have to be doing more. I love to use the example that I really like to read, but I don't like to tell people I read, because the number one response I get is, how do you have the time? Which is kind of offensive. So again, if we are in a work culture that is very much overwork, 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 it's important for us to be aware of that, how that's affecting us, and how we can interact with that. I already discussed the unclear expectations, and that we really need to clarify those expectations and what's realistic within our jobs. But I think it's important to note guilt is a huge, huge piece of things. We are often overworking because we feel guilty, and often we are the ones putting the guilt on ourselves, not anyone else. So if we are the ones putting guilt on ourselves, then we are the ones that can take the guilt off of ourselves. So it's really important to know, hopefully, everyone wants you to have days off, and everyone wants you to have work-life balance, just like they want to have their own work-life balance. And so there's really no need to feel guilty. There's no reason to feel guilty. So it's really important to just be aware of how that guilt is driving our behaviors, and how we cannot let the guilt drive our behaviors. And then the last barrier I'll mention today is just not knowing how. Again, we are kind of surrounded in a culture of overworking. We are surrounded in a culture of always being connected all of the time, and it's hard to figure that out. But if we can look at, the culture, asking expectations, understanding our own time management and what we need, that is going to give a good roadmap of how to work towards work-life balance and what's going to work for us specifically. If we usually have a lot of folks from HR on these calls, so if you're working in HR, there are some things that workplaces can do, right? As much as a workplace is able to give flexibility, give flexibility. Some workplaces aren't able to do so, but in ways that we are able, let's see how we can do that. Another thing that workplaces can do is we can provide resources, time management resources, stress management resources, personal improvement resources. We can offer, again, I work for an employee assistance program, but we can offer an employee assistance program and encourage people to use that. I know a few workplaces that offer work-life balance assessments, not to read, but just to give out, here, take a look at this, you do it on your own, just for your own personal awareness. But it shows that we want people to be working on work-life balance. Providing training, again, I'm biased because I'm a trainer, but providing training about work-life balance and how to manage this and what we can do is really, really valuable. And it's also important to lead by example. This goes into the workplace culture and expectations. Unfortunately, I see a lot of time workplaces saying that they promote good work-life balance and having good intentions of wanting to promote good work-life balance, but all executives, people in leadership are overworking and answering emails at all hours of the night and things like that. And that's not leading by example. And it's really important to lead by example when we want to promote work-life balance. So what can you do? First of all, we need to recognize that could our workplaces always do better with certain things? Of course, absolutely. But at the end of the day, there's a lot that we have control over that is going to help us with our work-life balance. So the first thing is we can practice time management. A big piece of practicing time management is figuring out what works for you. So for example, I am the most productive between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. I know that. So I purposely try to schedule very important tasks, things that I have to focus very hard on between those hours. Now that's not going to work for everyone. Lots of people don't like to be awake at 7 a.m. So again, in practicing time management, we have to look at what works for us. It's also really important to establish a routine. We've probably heard this before, but we as human beings thrive off of routines. Our brains work better when we have routines. We're able to focus more when things are predictable. So as much as we're able to establish a routine, being able to establish a routine, incorporating relaxation. Are we going home from work and looking at our emails, or are we going home from work and trying to relax and trying to spend time with our families? A huge important thing to note is that scrolling on our phone is not relaxation. It's not. It's okay to do that. We need that sometimes, but we also need that type of recharge relaxation that we can also get sometimes. We can set boundaries between work and personal life. Again, some of this is going to be job dependent on what's expected of us and what's realistic in our jobs. But when we're able to set a boundary, we should set a boundary. It is okay to set boundaries. It is okay to say, I'm not answering emails after 6 o'clock at night because I'm with my family. Again, as long as that's reasonable within your job, it's okay to do that. We've gotten really uncomfortable with setting boundaries. But one thing that I want us to remember when we're feeling uncomfortable setting a boundary is that if we set a boundary now, that's going to help our future selves. If I set a boundary now, that's going to help me not be frustrated later and overwhelmed later and, working so hard that I'm running myself ragged and getting sick. That's going to help my future self. So whenever we're feeling uncomfortable setting boundaries, keep that in mind and that might help motivate you. It's also important to communicate our needs, obviously within reason, but oftentimes there's things that workplaces can do that we're simply just not asking for. For example, if we need to, leave 30 minutes early on Tuesdays to pick up our kids, lots of workplaces can accommodate that. We just need to ask. And then lastly, we need to utilize those resources. All of the things I spoke about on the last slide of what workplaces can do, your workplace is already probably doing some of that, maybe not all of it, but maybe some of it. And it's important for us to utilize those resources. They are there for a reason. They are there to help us. At the end of the day, happy employees are more productive employees. So workplaces want employees to be happy. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So we want to utilize those resources. One last thing I'll say about work-life balance is it's not always going to be even. Sometimes work is going to take the priority, and sometimes home is going to take the priority. And hopefully they can work together nicely when those things happen. But I don't want anyone to expect that it is always going to be even and equal, because that's just not realistic. What is more realistic is figuring out what works for us and how work and life can flow together in a way that makes us happy and fulfilled and feeling like we have work-life balance. Like I said, my name is Mary Ellen. I'm the director of oh, whoops, sorry. I'm the director of corporate training here at ENI. My email address is right on the screen. Please reach out to me via email if you have any questions or interested in any trainings. And again, mark your calendars for next month. Thank you so much for coming today. I hope everyone has a fantastic day.